So I've been interviewing a lot of people recently for a couple of data positions within my company, and I wanted to make a short video talking about 7 things I learned from interviewing others. You know, stuff like things to do, things not to do, how to stand out, how to answer questions, all from an interviewer's perspective. Alright, so the first and probably the most important thing I learned from interviewing others is don't lie. So far, many of the applicants that I've interviewed have lied on their resume or during the interview at some point. This could obviously range from a small white lie to something incredibly big, such as faking a metric on your resume or saying you're an expert in a programming language that you've never used before. And again, this is obviously not good, but I think I found the reason why people lie on their resume. I think most of the time, people tend to write down what they think their employer might want to see on their resume, but they don't take the extra step to go ahead and learn that tool, language, framework, skill set, or experience and implement it so that they can actually put it on their resume. I noticed that they tend to justify it somehow, but in reality, they don't really understand the repercussions of lying on your resume or during an interview. Let's say you're applying for a data science or machine learning position and you've listed HBaker on your resume as a tool that you're familiar with. You will most likely be asked questions about that specific tool, language, skill set, framework during your interview. So if you haven't used it extensively enough to talk about it during the interview, it might be best to leave it off your resume altogether, or maybe get some hands-on experience before putting it on, or write on your resume, elaborate that you don't have hands-on experience so you can't talk about it too much in depth. This is less important for entry-level jobs, obviously, because the expectation for an internship or apprenticeship is that you're coming in with little to no experience. However, if you're applying for a senior level position where the salary is in the mid to high 6-figure range, you should be fully prepared to answer any questions about your skills, tools, languages, projects, experiences listed on your resume. The next thing I wouldn't do during an interview is read off a script. In short, please don't do this. 99% of the time will catch you almost immediately and flag you to the HR department. It's pretty obvious to see someone looking up or to the side to see another screen and read off a script, or just sound robotic in general. Honestly, it's really hard to get back from this. If you ever cheat or lie on your resume or during your interview, maybe you've used AI for some technical interviews, your interviewer might find out and there's going to be an instant disconnect or distrust between you and them. They're probably going to flag you to the HR department, and from there you're probably never going to be able to work for that company again. You're going to be blacklisted, so try to avoid this at all costs. What I do recommend though is having a cheat sheet on the side with some talking points that you have that you want to bring up during your interview, some questions you want to ask, maybe some research you've done on the company or the interviewer. Like I said before, a lot of the good candidates that I've interviewed had some sort of cheat sheet or paper on the side where they wrote down some bullet points of stuff they don't want to miss during the interview, or maybe they jot notes down on that cheat sheet too during the interview just so they remember and can follow up on those questions. Alright, the next thing I love seeing from candidates during interviews is confidence. You know, they always tend to slip up, repeat themselves, stutter, etc., which is completely fine, but if you do it consistently throughout the 1-hour interview, it kind of ruins the momentum and tempo and gives you a bad impression. On the other hand, if you are confident during your interviews, it radiates confidence and encourages us to be confident in you too. Usually, if you've already got to the interview stage, your qualifications and skills should be good enough, so if you're someone who gets nervous or has imposter syndrome, try remembering that. Also, overconfidence is also a bad thing and can be seen as obnoxious, self-serving, egoistic, and many other bad things that I won't talk about during this video. Try to find that sweet spot or middle ground between no confidence and overconfidence and stick with it. Alright, this next thing I'm going to talk about is what most employers look for during interviews, so pay attention. Be very specific when answering questions. A lot of candidates can write really good bullet points, but when asked about their specific experiences during interviews, they tend to give very general and broad answers, which can be seen as a red flag. If you're more specific with your answers and use your successes, challenges, and experiences when answering interview questions, it's going to be much more convincing when showcasing your skill set. For example, if I'm asking about your experience with a specific tool such as Redshift or Tableau, go ahead and talk about some of the projects you've used those tools for, your pain points, the benefits, stuff they solve, challenges you faced, and other experiences you've had with those tools, instead of just reading off documentation from their websites or Google. Another big thing that we love seeing from candidates is the willingness to learn. Always show that you're willing to learn during your interviews. Most of the time when we're interviewing a candidate for a position, they aren't necessarily going to have all the skills needed for that job, but if they show that they are willing to learn and examples of how they've learned in the past, maybe they've learned a new tool or language by themselves, that's an immediate green flag. Personally, I like to ask how they're keeping up with the growth of the field, how they're learning new languages or frameworks, and how they're implementing AI into their workflow, just to have a better feeling or understanding of them as a person. Based on their answer, you can kind of tell if they're interested in learning outside of their day-to-day job, or if they're teachable or coachable, stuff like that. The chances of finding a perfect candidate is very slim. However, if you're teachable, it's very easy for us to mentor and mold you to become the perfect candidate for us. Another amazing thing that I see candidates who stand out do is ask good questions. Most candidates tend to just ask very high level or general questions that don't really have much substance and are very hard to build on after answering the initial question. Don't get me wrong, asking any questions is almost always going to be better than asking no questions at all. However, if you take some time to do some research on your interviewer or the company you're going to be interviewing at beforehand, maybe you can craft some unique or personal questions towards them that will build your relationship, make it much stronger, make you stand out, and overall make your experience much more memorable. When they're collecting their thoughts after the interview and writing their feedback, you'll have a much better chance because you stood out and did that research. I talk more about how to craft good questions for your interviews and other good interview techniques in another video. I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to check it out. Alright, the last thing I want to talk about during this video is that you should always maximize your time during your interviews. Just like the saying goes, it's not over till it's over. So if you feel like you maybe messed up at the start of the interview, maybe you've answered a question incorrectly or not how you wanted to, you can always reword it later on to recalibrate your interviewer's impression of you. Or maybe you can ask some good questions at the end of the interview, talk about the company a little more, try to understand the company and the position needs. Stuff like that will always help you, stand out and make you a better candidate for the position. If the interview is scheduled for an hour, you have up to an hour to make yourself stand out, fix all the mistakes you may have made at the start of the interview, win over the interviewer and try to secure the job altogether. Like I said before, I like to ask a lot of good questions in interviews, sometimes personal questions to each person in the interview to build a more deeper connection, get to know them a little better, and hopefully stand out and make me more personable to them. I definitely know that the interview process is not an easy thing. I've interviewed for dozens of companies for various different positions, and I've made so many mistakes that it's hard to keep count. If I were to start all over again, I definitely would have appreciated a video like this to give me some clarity and direction of where to go and where not to go. I personally hope this video did that for you. If not, I sincerely apologize. To those of you who are currently in the job search or interview process, I want to wish you all the best, and I hope this channel can provide you some value during that time. Anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them down below. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like down below beside the subscribe button. It helps the channel out tremendously. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.